Rahman did not come back home to Medina Munawwara for 27 years. This is when people had that importance of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That here the deen requires something from me. I need to offer something for it. How can I just go home and sit back? After 27 years, when Abdul Rahman came back home, it was almost before Salatul Asr. He arrives there. As he knocks at the door of his house, a man opens up the door. So Abdul Rahman gets into fight with that man, that this is my house. And he had asked people already that if Abdul Rahman's wife is still alive. And they told her yes. They told him yes, she's alive. And she's in the same house. So he goes over there. And there is a man in the house. So he gets into a fight with this man until people get together and they tell them that, look, this man that you're fighting with is not a stranger. This is your own son. Abdul Rahman, after getting home, he asked his wife about how she was doing and everything. And at the same time, he asked her about the money that he had left behind. She said, don't worry, I have all of that saved for you. Go for Salah, and after Salah, when you come back, I'll get it out and bring it to you. He goes for Salatul Masjid for Salatul Asr in the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After Salah, people are gathered around that same young man, and he's giving a talk about Islam. People are learning Islam from him. He's so proud. My son is teaching deen in the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He goes back home to tell his wife what he had seen in the masjid. She said, what is dearer to you? Those 30,000 dinar that you left behind, or this position of your son that you have seen in the masjid? He said, of course. And of course, we can imagine a person who have offered so much sacrifice for the deen of Allah, 27 years out there. So of course, we know what's valuable to him. He says, of course, nothing comparable to what I have seen, the position of my son. She said, I spent those 30,000 dinar on the education of your son. And that son was Rabi'ah, the teacher of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi. So of course, a mother who offered all of that sacrifice. The whole family, the father, mother, and the son. Imagine the hardships that they have gone through for the sake of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, working for the deen of Allah. So of course, Imam Malik rahimahullah is sitting in the company of that type of person. He's getting the effect of it. He's getting the rahmah, he's feeling the power there. Rabi'ah bin Abdul Rahman, who's sitting in the masjid and teaching people the deen of Allah, is just like a generator over there, who's generating power, and everyone that connects himself to Rabi'ah feels that his iman, nur of iman, is getting so high that this person is in a different world. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, after spending many years in the company of Rabi'atul Rai, now he thought, I should start learning hadith from some other teachers. And Rabi'ah is known as Rabi'atul Rai. The reason for that is, Ar-Rai means opinion. And because he was faqih, in those days, fuqaha were known the people of Rai. Because there were two sides, the people of hadith, which means those who memorize the hadith. This is all they do. They memorize their hadith. When you want to know about the wording of a hadith and the authenticity of those wordings, you go to one of these muhaddithin. And if you want to know about the meaning of the hadith, you go to one of the people who are known by the term Ar-Rai. So Rabi'ah is known as Rabi'atul Rai because he is the person who talks, or who's mostly his gatherings are about the explanation of the hadith and the meanings of the hadith and the masail that we derive and the rulings that we derive from the Quran and hadith. Just like in Kufa, at that same time, there were two schools of thoughts. One was of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, that was known as Madrasatul Rai, Ashabul Rai. And the other was the class of Sufyan al-Thawri Rahimahullah, who was known as Madrasatul Hadith. That if you want to know about the authenticity of the wordings of the Hadith, go to Sufyan al-Thawri. If you want to know about the meanings of it, go to Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmatullahi alayhi. And they used to go to each other for the same type of things. So this is the reason Rabi'a is known as Rabi'atul Rai. And Imam Malik was one of his students, and in fact, Rabi'atul Rai was one of the favorite teachers of Imam Malik Rahmatullahi alayhi. So Imam Malik Rahmatullahi alayhi got into the depth of fiqh, of understanding the rulings and the meanings through his teacher Rabi'atul Rai. And this is, subhanallah, finally we see that Imam Malik coming as one of the four great A'imma of fiqh is through the teachings of his teacher Rabi'atul Rai. And this is same Rabi'a, the son of Abdul Rahman, who spent 27 years out of his home. During the same time, there was another great muhaddis in Medina Munawwarah, whose name was Ibn Hurmuz. Imam Malik Rahmatullahi alayhi wanted to memorize ahadith. He learned the fiqh here. He wanted to memorize the ahadith. He says, I thought Ibn Hurmuz will be one of the best people for me to learn the hadith from, to memorize the hadith from. And accordingly, Imam Malik started going to the gatherings of Ibn Hurmuz with the permission from his teacher Rabi'a. Rabi'a had a great respect for Imam Malik. Imam Malik spent a lot of years with him. So he knows that he has a lot of ability of deriving the masail from Quran and Hadith. So he also permitted him to go over there and memorize the Hadith because he knew the sharp memory Imam Malik Rahmatullahi alayhi has and the ability of deriving the masail. So he permitted him, he said, go and learn the Hadith, memorize the Hadith. So he went and started spending time with Ibn Hurmuz. Imam Malik Rahmatullahi alayhi devoted his life for the learning of deen. And in those days, when we use the word devoted to the education, it's totally different than the term that we use it nowadays, or we can understand it nowadays. Nowadays, a person who's very devoted to it, it's a person who may spend holidays only not studying. And the rest of the time is studying. And then he has only about 6-7 hours of rest because he is devoted to his studies, and that's all he does. He rests for 6-7 hours, rest of the day he's studying. But in those days, devotion to the studies of hadith especially meant that this person does not have food to eat. He does not get time to sleep. Whenever he would get a chance, he would just lay down at the doorsteps of his teacher's home. This is a half an hour that I have before my teacher will walk out of the house, so let me just have a little rest outside of his home there. At the doorstep, in the blistering heat of Medina Munawwarah, this person, who's known later on as Imam Malik, that Malik bin Anas, is laying down at the doorsteps of the houses of his teacher. Devotion to the studies. Imam Malik Rahmatullahi alayhi, he says, I started serving Ibn Hurmuz. Not just learning from him. I started serving him like a servant in those days would do a work. And the reason for that was because I wanted the closeness from that teacher so that I can maximize the benefit of learning from him at all occasions, at all times. Because I'm serving him. So I can be with him at all times. Even when he's resting, I'm around him. I'm learning how he rests. And during that time, if he remembers something special about the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would inform me of it. 7 to 8 years he spent with his teacher Ibn Hurmuz. And he served him in such a way that people, newcomers to Medina Munawwarah, would think that Imam Malik really is a servant of Ibn Hurmuz. In fact, some of the close people to Imam Malik, they thought for long years that Imam Malik is one of the slaves and the servants that works in the house of Ibn Hurmuz. This is how he devoted himself to serving his teachers so that he can learn from him. In 7 to 8 years, as he memorized the hadith that he could get from Ibn Hurmuz, now he thought, I need to spend some time with one more person. And spending time with that person will really give a final touch-up to the knowledge of Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi for him to become the Imam. Who was that person? A person who was known to be very knowledgeable, but at the same time, he had a strict personality.